They say the most terrifying murders don't come from dark alleys or unknown faces, but from secrets whispered behind closed doors. And in this case, the truth was buried so deep within one family that by the time it surfaced, blood had already been spilled, a body lay broken, and an entire community would never sleep the same way again. It began in a quiet suburban neighborhood where the houses looked identical. Lawns were trimmed with military precision, and families waved politely but rarely truly knew one another. A place where nothing ever seemed out of order until the night screaming shattered the illusion and revealed that behind one familiar front door hid a secret so poisonous it would ultimately lead to a brutal murder. Welcome to Dark Case Files, a true crime story where family loyalty became a weapon, silence became an accomplice, and the past refused to stay buried. The victim was 38-year-old Michael Harris, a father of two, a high school history teacher, and by all public accounts a man who had built his life on responsibility and routine, waking every morning at the same time, driving the same route to school, grading papers late into the night, and attending weekly family dinners with his parents and younger sister at their longtime home on Pinewood Drive. Neighbors describe Michael as reserved but kind, the type of man who would shovel an elderly neighbor's driveway without being asked and return lost pets without expecting thanks, yet those closest to him knew something was wrong in the months before his death, something that hovered just beneath the surface of every conversation. The Harris family had lived in that neighborhood for more than 25 years, ever since Michael and his sister Lavra were children. And from the outside, they were the textbook definition of stability. A married couple, two kids who grew up, went to college, and returned home often. But beneath the smiles and shared meals was a history of lies that stretched back decades. A secret carefully protected by family members who believed they were preserving unity when in reality they were nurturing something dangerous. The secret centered on Lavra Harris, Michael's younger sister by 4 years, who had always been considered the fragile one, the child their parents guarded too closely and excused too often. But what no one outside the family knew was that Lavra had been involved in a serious incident when she was 17, an incident that ended with another teenager hospitalized and the truth rewritten to protect her future. Through false statements, altered timelines, and an unspoken agreement among family members, blame had been shifted, records buried, and Lavra had walked away without consequences while the family carried the weight of their deception into adulthood. Michael never fully accepted what had happened. As he grew older, the burden of that secret seemed to gnaw at him, especially as he built a career teaching ethics and history, lecturing students about accountability and truth, while knowing his own family had escaped justice through lies. Friends later recalled that Michael had grown distant from his parents and increasingly tense around Lavra, who struggled with addiction and unstable relationships in adulthood, often relying on her family for money and housing while refusing to confront her past. The atmosphere inside the Harris home became increasingly volatile as Michael began insisting that the truth about the incident be acknowledged, if not publicly then at least within the family. But his parents refused, insisting that reopening the past would destroy Lavra and tear the family apart, arguments that escalated from whispered conversations to shouting matches that neighbors occasionally overheard through open windows. What none of them realized was that the secret they were trying to protect was already acting like a slow-burning fuse. On the night of October 17th, the family gathered as usual for Sunday dinner, a routine they believed maintained normalcy, but tension hung heavy in the air as Michael arrived late, his jaw clenched and his demeanor uncharacteristically cold. According to Lavra, Michael had called her earlier that day and told her he was done protecting her, that he had discovered new evidence from the past incident, and that if the family refused to confront the truth, he would go to the authorities himself. Dinner that night was strained voices, low questions avoided, and after dessert, Michael announced he was leaving early only to stop in the hallway and turn back toward his sister, telling her in front of their parents that lies rot families from the inside and that silence is another form of violence, words that would become chilling in retrospect. Less than 6 hours later, at 2:43 a.m., police received a frantic 911 call from Lavra Harris, her voice shaking as she claimed to have found her brother unconscious in his home. Blood everywhere, not breathing. First responders arrived at Michael's modest house just 3 blocks from his parents' home and immediately recognized that this was no accident. Michael was lying at the base of his staircase, massive blunt force trauma to his head, deep lacerations on his arms, and evidence of a violent struggle that had stretched from the living room to the hallway. The scene was chaotic but deliberate. Furniture overturned, picture frames shattered, streaks of blood smeared along the walls as if Michael had tried desperately to escape his attacker. And most disturbing of all, the lack of forced entry. Whoever killed Michael Harris had either been let inside willingly or already had access to his home. As the sun rose and word spread through the neighborhood, the shock was immediate and profound. A respected teacher dead in his own home, murdered with a brutality that suggested rage rather than robbery, with his wallet still in his pocket and nothing of value missing. Police quickly identified the case as a homicide and began canvassing neighbors. But few had heard anything beyond a distant thud or muffled voices they dismissed as nothing unusual at the time. Investigators focused on Michael's personal life, uncovering tension at work, financial stress, and recent arguments with family members, and it did not take long for Lavra Harris to become a person of interest. She had been one of the last people to see Michael alive, had reportedly argued with him earlier that day, and had called 911 from inside his house rather than from outside, something detectives noted immediately. Lavra told police that she had driven to Michael's house late that night to apologize, fearing he was serious about going to authorities, and claimed she found the door unlocked and her brother already injured. But her timeline was inconsistent, shifting by nearly 30 minutes between interviews, and forensic evidence soon contradicted parts of her story. Blood spatter analysis revealed cast-off patterns on Laura's clothing consistent with close-range blunt force trauma. And though she claimed she had tried to help Michael, there were no signs of first aid, only smears suggesting movement after death. Despite this, the investigation initially stalled due to lack of direct eyewitnesses and the family's reluctance to share information about their past, but detectives pushed deeper, uncovering the long-buried incident from Laura's teenage years. A case file that had been mysteriously altered, witness statements that no longer aligned, and a victim who had quietly moved away and refused to cooperate further. The turning point came when investigators discovered emails Michael had drafted but never sent saved on his laptop detailing the family's secret and his intent to come forward, messages addressed not only to police but to his school administration and even local media, evidence that suggested Michael was preparing to expose everything. These drafts revealed his inner conflict, guilt, and fear, and they established a clear motive for anyone desperate to keep the truth buried. Under mounting pressure, Lavra was brought in for a third interview, this time confronted with forensic evidence phone records placing her near Michael's home hours before her claimed arrival, and the content of Michael's drafts, and after 12 hours of questioning, the cracks finally appeared. Lavra broke down, admitting she had gone to confront Michael, insisting she only wanted him to delay, to give her time. But when he refused and threatened to leave anyway, the argument escalated into violence she claimed she never intended. According to Lavra, Michael had tried to push past her toward the door. She grabbed a heavy decorative object from a nearby table, and in a moment of panic and rage, she struck him, once, then again. And when he fell, she continued, driven by fear of losing everything she had built on a lie. Though she claimed she never meant to kill him, the brutality of the attack told a different story. Lavra Harris was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, and the case quickly became a media sensation, labeled by true crime enthusiasts and journalists alike as a dark case files example of how family secrets can fester into deadly outcomes. The trial revealed even more disturbing details, including testimony from their parents acknowledging they had lied decades earlier to protect Lavra, effectively validating Michael's moral struggle and confirming the depth of the deception. Public reaction was fierce. Some sympathized with Lavra, viewing her as a product of parental overprotection and lifelong avoidance of consequences, while others saw her as a manipulator who had finally resorted to murder to preserve her false reality. Michael was remembered as a man who tried to do the right thing, even when it meant risking everything he had ever known. In the end, Lavra was found guilty and sentenced to 30 years in prison, a punishment many felt came too late to truly serve justice. And the Harris family home was eventually sold, the parents relocating to another state, their once perfect image forever shattered by the truth they tried so desperately to hide. But even with a conviction, questions remain. Would Michael still be alive if the family had confronted the truth years earlier? Was Lara capable of change if she had faced consequences as a teenager? And how many other families are living with secrets that silently shape their futures in ways they cannot yet imagine? This true crime story reminds us that silence can be deadly, that lies told out of love can become weapons, and that sometimes the most dangerous crimes are born not from hatred but from fear. This has been Dark Case Files, a Dark Case Files true crime narrative about a family destroyed by its own deception that proves the past always finds a way back. So what do you think? Was this murder inevitable, or could honesty have saved Michael Harris's life? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more true crime stories like this one, dark, detailed, and hauntingly real, don't forget to subscribe to Dark Case Files and turn on notifications so you never miss a case where the truth hides in the shadows.